I like to talk at this time of year each year on the theme of peace. The title of my talk tonight is Let There Be Peace on Earth. I've been singing, you know how you get one of those songs in your head? There's this song that starts, that goes, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. I used to sing it in church, and I guess it's out in the public as well. But let there be peace on earth. And often, I think, when we think about let there be peace on earth, the mind can kind of go to out there someplace. We hope they stop bombing in Syria or Yemen. They stop shooting or whatever, or that the refugees in Germany are welcomed. And, that we can kind of be thinking about peace, or even the politicians here in the United States, that, peace being out there someplace and, wishing for peace out there. But that second line of the song has really been striking me, and let it begin with me. And I've been thinking a lot about that let peace begin internally, which is really the only place it can begin. Even if someone were to decide to stop dropping bombs, it would still be arising out of some internal state, some internal awareness. So in terms of let there be peace on earth, really our invitation, our practice is the second line, and let it begin with me. And the invitation to investigate, how do we cultivate peace in our own minds and in our own hearts in such a way that it can extend outward in a wholesome way. That if we want to bring any qualities of peace through our behavior, through our actions out into the world, it really needs to start very intimately. Very intimately. As we cultivate peace and stillness in our own minds, in our own hearts. Thich Nhat Hanh, who actually knows a great deal about waging peace, he tells a story about back when the Vietnamese boat people were fleeing Vietnam after the communist takeover, that they would be either beset by the government of various places they were trying to land in, or by pirates on the seas. And it was a very treacherous journey. And he said that very often that the boats that survived contained one person, at least, who was able to sustain a quality of calm and peace, even in the midst of all the craziness, all the chaos. And he himself knows a great deal about that. I was looking at his a little bit of his biography today, and I hadn't really realized just how many times he'd been thrown out of his country or displaced from someplace, or had had a project that he was working on all of a sudden run afoul of the government wherever he was, and have it be, have the supports pulled out from underneath whatever it was that he was doing. So an incredible ambassador for exactly what he's saying, of somebody on our little boat planet Earth being able to sustain a mind and a heart of peace. Here's somebody on our boat who's able to kind of help us sustain that quality of mind and heart. Jack Kornfield says the same thing about Deepa Ma, the Indian saint. He asked her one time, Deepa Ma, she was known for being just incredibly loving. And he said to her, he said, what's in your mind? What do you think about? She said, the only thing that's in my mind is mindfulness, awareness, and loving kindness. It's just so filled with mindfulness and loving kindness that there's no room for anything else. So that the reason or the capacity to offer that quality of presence in the world really begins in our minds, our own minds, and in our own hearts. We can have it as a lovely idea. We could end our our talk here and have it as a lovely idea. But if it doesn't come into our own reflection and into our own practice, it's really not worth a whole bunch. At this time of year in particular, we can kind of get a little romantic about the ideas of universal love and peace, or we can watch the news and get a little romantic about how all those people should stop being mean to each other. And yet we can forget about really bringing it into our own reflection and into our own direct practice. So I wanted to explore a little bit tonight one of many, there's so many skillful means of doing that, but wanted to explore together tonight a little bit how we might practice, especially as we go through these next few busy days. We have about 10 days of a little bit of craziness ahead of us, one way or another. So basically, we learn our basic skills about peace as babies. When we think about ourselves as babies, we don't quite remember, but we can imagine coming into this world of just sensation, and being barraged by just incredible internal sensations, external sensations, all this information. And babies have to learn to regulate themselves. And they learn to do that. We each learned to do that, for better or for worse, through the capacities of the grown-ups around us, through their capacities to regulate themselves, which then energetically really kind of bled over into our own skills and our own capacities. So even more than any active teaching, the qualities of presence of our caretakers, when we were overwhelmed, when we were underwhelmed, when we were distressed in some way or another by all the data that we were experiencing, the qualities of presence of those beings in our lives really are what helped us learn how to regulate ourselves. And so we developed certain capacities to do that, again, for better or for worse. There are a couple of aspects of that I want to talk about a little bit more at some point. Some of you have asked for some inquiry into energy and how that might relate to difficult emotions, and I'll put together a talk on that at some point. And another, I think it came up maybe the last time I spoke, where someone was talking about basically some early challenges in regulating herself and how those can affect our practice these days. That may or may not show up in a talk. It'll show up on my blog someplace, but it may not show up in a talk. But that our early conditioning can leave us with either certain skills and at times certain deficits in our skills of regulating ourselves. So ultimately, the cultivation of a peaceful mind is an inside job, as we get to be adults. You've heard us recite this poem. This is just a piece of the poem. Peace is this moment without judgment. It's the early part of the poem. She says, "Do you think peace requires an end to war? Or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here? Some other time than now? In some other heart than yours? So many skillful means of cultivating peace in our own hearts. I wanted to talk about one of them, and again, I often refer to this sutta because I love it so much. The sutta where Mahanama asks, he's a layman, and he comes and he asks the Buddha, he says, you all as monastics, you all have lots of rules, you have lots of guidelines about how to live and how to practice, but we're all pretty busy with our lives and our work and our just day-to-day activities. He said, what should we think about? What should fill our minds? And the Buddha goes on to tell him 6 things. Well, he says, first of all, one who is aroused to practice is one of conviction, one of persistence, one of established mindfulness, one of concentration and discernment. So starting with the basis of conviction, persistence, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment, he then goes on to say, and once you've really kind of gotten that kind of basis, then fill your minds with one of or all of 6 things. And he said, contemplate the Buddha. Think about the Buddha. Think about the Buddha's good qualities. Think about the good qualities of your own Buddha nature. Think about the Dharma that I teach. Think about the guidelines that I offer for wholesomeness. Think about the Sangha, the other people you are practicing with and who inspire you. He said, think about your own virtues. Contemplate your own virtues. We do sometimes a Dharma contemplation on that one. Contemplate your own virtues. Bring those into your own mind. He makes generosity a whole separate contemplation. He said, contemplate generosity. Contemplate your generosity. And the last one, I want to talk about the last one because I don't talk about it very much. He says, I don't know if I quoted the whole thing. No, I didn't write it down. He says, contemplate the devas. Devas? Contemplate the devas. And we have to remember that he was talking in India in 2,600 years ago, where it was pretty common for people to be aware of spirits, beings in other realms. He sometimes talked about the wood spirits or, angels. Lots of different kind of terms. And people just kind of dealt with the devas as sort of an ordinary part of our life. So between contemplating the Sangha of, beings who are practicing well and contemplating the devas, he's really talking about really bring into your awareness those beings who basically practice peace, wholesomeness, goodness, awareness, loving kindness, compassion, who practice well. Bring them into your awareness and let them fill your hearts and minds as one of the possible practices. I was reading a book by John McCransky, and he started out the very first chapter, he was talking about contemplating your benefactors. Bring into your awareness those people who have taught and loved and inspired you. And fill your minds and hearts with the goodness of those beings and the goodness of that inspiration, which is actually touching into your own goodness. Just the fact that we even recognize that goodness is a clue that we already have that quality in our own being. And the invitation is to cultivate that, to contemplate that, to reflect on that. And he goes on to say, Mahanama, you should develop this recollection of the Sangha of the Devas while you are walking, while you are standing, while you are sitting, while you are lying down, while you are busy at work, while you are resting at home, in your home crowded with children. So filling our minds with these wholesome kinds of qualities. And what a good thing to practice at this time of year. What a good thing to practice. So I wanted to practice with it a little bit tonight, and I wanted to invite you to do a little reflection again. So to reflect a bit with a partner if you want to, and by yourself if you choose. You don't, some people would rather just reflect internally. But if you'd like to reflect with a partner, one or two other people, no more than two, because there isn't going to be enough time for everybody to talk. No more than two others. So just take a moment and get yourself adjusted in that way. And then I'll offer a reflection for you to try to bring this home a little bit. I'll take a minute and do that. Make sure you know the name of the person you are reflecting with, if you're reflecting with another person. So start out by just each of you being aware of your own body. We practiced a bit with the body initially in our meditation. So just be aware of how the body is right now. What's going on in your belly and your arms and your cheekbones and your toes, your heart. So I wanted to invite you to reflect on others who are well regarded and who inspire you in some way. Others who are peaceful and still in their presence, who are good people to have in our boat, if you will, this boat of earth. Who are these beings who you're happy to have in this earth boat of ours? And you might start out by just reflecting on, of course, it's sort of infinite how you could do this, but I'll invite you to just reflect. Are there religious leaders anywhere who you're happy to have in the boat with you? So just take a moment and reflect with your partner. Are there, and it could be, someone kind of big and way out there, or it could be someone really kind of unknown. It doesn't have to be a big important person. Just who are you happy? Who inspires you? So just take a couple minutes with your partner and just share that with one another. Just another possibility. contemplate any political figures who you're happy to have in your boat. Who inspires you? And really drop into this. You know, it's easy to be cynical. Who are the political figures they don't have to be perfect or omnipotent, but who has some qualities that inspire you? Now I'll invite you to reflect on a political leader from the other party who inspires you, who you're happy to have, who has qualities that you are happy to have in your boat. And if you can't think of one, try harder. So the Buddha invites us to contemplate the spirits, the beings who inspire. So one last one. Contemplate any beings in among your friends or your family, or your work, maybe your work colleagues, who bring qualities of peace and wholesomeness that really help you to stay centered and at ease. Who are those beings? A couple more minutes. Friends, family, work. Okay. I'm obviously not giving you anywhere near enough time to do justice to these reflections. But I would invite you to reflect, to take them home with you a bit, and to reflect a bit on the beings who inspirit you, who touch your own spirit in such a way that it helps you to find that quality of peace internally, or goodness internally. And so now I would just ask you to notice, how's your body? What's it like to do this reflection? Do you notice any changes in your body from how it was when you began? I asked you to notice when you began. What do you notice? What's interesting? Jeannie, huh?
Kind of like a gratitude feeling.
More ease in the body, just this little teeny reflection. Great. What else? Anything else? Holly? Some positive energy and more filled with it, yeah. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how powerful our minds are? Just this little bit of reflection. What else? One more. Anybody else? Nancy Elizabeth?
More settled.
Settled? Nice. It's a good way to be in this rocky, tippy boat, huh? Yeah. Yeah. And one more, yeah.
I feel better. I've been kind of achy when I came in.
Okay. So kind of achy when you first came, but a little more at ease. Right. Right. All right. One more. Allie? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So a real contagion of feelings, that, those qualities that arise, and then they really, and what you're describing, isn't it, is that they spark those qualities in you. Huh? Yeah. So this is, I mean, we're actually experiencing just this little tiny bit what Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about. All we have to do is even think of someone, and it really helps to bring that quality of peace. So we can imagine, if we cultivate this in our minds and hearts, how we might carry this quality of peace into the world. The Buddha I seem to be standing these days. The Buddha had a teaching that's called Yoniso Manasikara. That's translated in many ways, but it's wise attention. And he said it was one of the most important of his teachings. Wise attention, where we direct our attention, really matters. And you've just had a teeny little taste of that. That where we direct and how we direct our attention really matters. So you can feel it in your own being, and presumably giving a little bit more juice and energy for that to manifest in the world. So our mind training is to suggest that we don't pay equal attention to everyone and everything. I was on retreat all of last week, and I had an interview with one of the teachers, and what did she call it? Wise avoidance. But really, I never heard of that before. Wise avoidance, We don't pay equal attention to everything and everyone. Wise avoidance. Yoniso Manasikara. Wise attention, what we pay attention to. What else here? So the wise attention means attention that's guided by some clarity around the question of where is suffering, what does suffering feel like in the body, and what helps to release it. That's all. Just a kind of, it isn't like a rule, like you have to be good, or you have to follow the commandments, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. Just where's suffering, and what helps to release it. And he said, contemplating these kinds of qualities can help to release suffering. So you can check it out in your own experience, especially as we go through these holidays. You're standing in line at the supermarket. What is wise attention? You're at a red light on Route 29 where every car in the eastern United States is backed up at the red light, What is wise attention? You're stuffing the turkey with your mother-in-law. What is wise attention? What is wise attention? So to really bring those qualities, to notice that not everything is worthy of our attention. If we're, in this boat on these choppy waters, really having some discipline about what we pay attention to, even perhaps what news we watch or listen to or read. What do we fill our minds with? What is wise attention? All right. Do you think peace requires an end to war? Are tigers eating only vegetables? Are everybody in your family behaving well? Or everybody in politics behaving well? Or everybody in the world behaving well? Do you think peace requires an end to war or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here? Some other time than now? In some other heart, in some other mind than yours? So I go back to the song that inspired me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. It's really what our practice is, huh? A nice practice maybe to take with you through these maybe challenging days ahead. So may your boat sail smoothly.